everybody, Reaper here again with another video. I've seen this around on YouTube, and I've heard this in certain comments about what is ruining the comic book hobby. So again, I asked the question to you, and I will answer it based on my experience. Now, my experience, again, disclaimer, does not mean that this is actually ruining the hobby. It's just my experiences. So what is ruining the hobby? I don't think anything's ruining the hobby. I know it's not just with comic books. I know in the last video I brought out a game and all that stuff. It's with any real hobby. I've noticed that collectors are always finding a villain that is ruining things for them. Now, there are some things that come up, I will agree, that kind of maybe make things not as fun as anymore. I made a video about that a couple of years ago. Is comic book collecting even fun? Because some of the prices were high back then. But it is fun. And your hobby should be fun. And I understand there's sometimes other elements that may make it not so fun. But you just got to adapt and find other things about it that make it fun. I've done that before. Anything, if it's worth doing, a hobby that's worth being involved in, you learn how to adapt and move on from those sort of things. You find things. So to answer the question very simply, and I'll elaborate more, no, I don't think anything's ruining the hobby. Some say, and I've heard this, and it's not just in comic books again, I've heard this very much so with games too. So if you moonlight as a game collector and all that stuff, influencers on YouTube. Now, I certainly don't consider myself an influencer, okay? But I understand that there are some comic book influencers out there that get a lot of views, have become very popular on Instagram in the community. You see them at cons. Sometimes people want to go to the con just to see that person sell, right? I've heard a few people like that. I won't mention any names. But some say influencers are ruining the hobby and all that stuff. I don't know. I mean, I'm not really influenced by anybody. You know what I mean? Some people are, though. Just because I'm not, that doesn't mean other people aren't. But I've always looked at the influencer, people that I would consider influencers, the ones that I follow, I've always found them to be positive. That, they're, try to be positive and upbeat about the hobby. Guys like Alex the Comic Book Hoarder and Reggie Collects. I've always found them to be positive influencers in this hobby and don't really deal, from what I've seen, in the negatives. So I think that if you watch channels like that, and there are many others like them, and there are negative ones too. I'm not saying that negative ones don't exist, okay? But if you watch like some of those videos, it's all about the joy of collecting. And yeah, sometimes you're going to see expensive things. Well, that's just the way it is. We all have expensive things, I would think, if we're in this hobby, if we've been in it for a long period of time. I do, maybe you do, they do, and others. But it's always been positive. I've always thought of it as like the joys of collecting. And another thing about some of those guys that I mentioned and others that I have not mentioned that escape me right now, that I was stupid enough not to write down on a piece of paper to remind everybody, a lot of those influencers, they help you with your collecting. If you're trying to figure out things about a specific comic, you find history about characters and artists and learning about first appearances. I think that that's great, instead of actually having to okay, do I have to actually look this up? You watch those shows and you learn a lot. You're learning from people that have been in the hobby for a while, that have collected and learned to maybe dodge some bullets when it comes to getting maybe ripped off, or trying to find a good place to buy comics, or learning about grading. ETA Nick is one of them. He's been, we used to do a show, me and him, years ago. I think anyone who remembers ETA Nick would agree that he was a positive influencer, I would say, especially when it came to grading books, learning how, what's this? He had his cheat sheet and all those sort of things. I think that a lot of influencers are have a positive effect on this hobby. And I understand that there are some that may be negative. I don't know. I can't really think of any right now. I know a lot that are in the when it comes to the gaming world. I don't want to talk too much about gaming because this is not really a gaming channel or a gaming video. But I know there are some gamers out there years ago that would go to flea markets and they were picking up great games for cheap. People didn't know what they had, and then other people started following, and they couldn't get games cheap anymore because people started to realize what they had, and they're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" Well, you might say that those influencers had a negative effect on people getting deals on some things. I don't know. You decide. You know, I mean, some may argue against that. That's fine. I'm not saying that that's the case. But I've always found that the influencers can be positive. I have another thing on my list here I wanted to talk to you about. What can be destroying the hobby? Again, I don't really think anything, but I can see this as a potential. And this is what I'm going to close with today. FOMO. I remember I made a video last year about FOMO, and people are like, "Oh, does FOMO even exist?" Well, it still exists. It still exists. And I think that sometimes leads to overinflation of prices, both graded and raw books. A new movie's coming out. Oh, Ant-Man's going to be in this movie. Oh, all of a sudden, Scott Lang's first appearance is a few $100s raw, maybe closer to 1,000 graded. I don't think so, but back then, of course. I don't even, FOMO used to affect me too. And I was like, oh, who's going to be in the next movie? I heard whispers that this one's going to be in this movie. And there's so many examples I go over. I'm just not, because I'm not going to bore you with characters. But I think most of you know what I mean. Whenever we hear about new movies coming out, we got to get that character immediately. And again, from one of my other videos, I say you need to have patience. You need to have patience. Don't quickly just give in to the fear of missing out. You know, a lot of these characters that, that are announced that are going to be in the next movie or whatever, eventually those books come back down. They may not come back down to what they were, that's true, and you may want to try to find that book before it becomes overpriced or whatever, if it becomes overpriced. But you got to have patience, So I think FOMO could be something, and it's not just for comics, it's for everything. There's FOMO in gaming too, believe it or not. There's FOMO in other sorts of collectible hobbies. Pokemon cards, I would imagine, sports cards. I mean, I don't know too much about those things, but I would imagine that they have their own version of FOMO and some other stuff that may make the hobby not as fun or destroying or ruining the hobby. It really all depends on the person, I think, at the end of the day. Those sort of things, although they are frustrating for me too, I don't let it destroy my hobby, my collecting, or ruining the hobby for me, because right now I feel I'm very happy with my collecting. I was able to let some books that I no longer want go to get better books. For all the years that I've had other books, I was able to upgrade them now, so I'm in a really good place and enjoying the hobby very much and looking forward to the next upgrade, or maybe the next newcomer to come into my collection. I think it's a great time. And to close with the FOMO thing, anytime, oh, well, did you hear this character is going to possibly be in Secret Wars next year? I don't care. I really don't care who's going to be in those movies. Oh, yeah, they're going to have this version of Ghost Rider in Secret Wars. He made his first appearance here. I don't care. I don't need to go and get, the 17th guy to be Ghost Rider because he's going to be in a movie. Or, oh, you're going to miss out. That book's going to go up in value. So what? I don't care. I don't care about the character. So I think if you narrow in on something that you care about when it comes to the hobby, you have a certain genre that you like to collect, you like to finish runs or whatever, those sort of things won't ruin the hobby for you. I mean, sometimes you might hit some walls when it comes to pricing. That comes with the territory, okay? Not everything's going to be 10 cents or $1.25 or whatever. But overall, I think it's still fun. I haven't been able to get an Amazing Spider-Man 1 yet. That's one of the things that I'd like to get because I'm just not ready to drop that kind of money. And that's okay. You're missing out. No, I'm not missing out on anything. If I wind up not getting it, I don't get it. And I'm still able to enjoy the hobby. So overall, I don't think so. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. Do you agree with some of the things I said? Do you not agree? Do you think that, well, I think the hobby's being ruined because of this, or, well, I don't know, maybe it's this. I'm interested to read what you have to say, but be civil, all right? as always, for me and for other people that are leaving comments. All right? Have a good rest of your day, and see you soon.